Hello, welcome to the video. I'm Andrew. This is a 2004 Suzuki Carry K-Truck that I've recently imported from Japan and it's now available for sale. So I thought I'd do a video to show you around it. So the Carry was first introduced back in 1961. This version, this iteration has been around since 2002. And as I said, this is a September 2004. It's done 55,000 kilometers. And it's the DA63T model code. So it's got a 660cc engine and it's manual transmission with four-wheel drive. I'm a real fan of these. For me, this is the perfect antidote to a lot of the modern and rather bloated, unnecessarily complicated vehicles that we have become accustomed to. This is wonderfully simple and hopefully I'll be able to give you a sense of that as I show you around it. So this type of vehicle is commonly known as a K-truck. That stands, the K is a shortening of Keijidosha, I think that's how it's pronounced roughly, which means light car or light vehicle. So in Japan, K cars, K-trucks have preferential tax treatment, both at the point of purchase and then in ongoing running costs, also from an insurance point of view, although it has to be said a lot of those tax breaks have been weakened and diluted by the government over in Japan since 2014. So the K class of vehicle are restricted in size, in engine capacity and in engine power. I'll take you around the exterior now. This one was a grade 4B at auction in Japan, which is actually fairly good for these. It's, what is it, 2004, so it's just not quite 80, it's 17 years old, not quite 18 years old yet. So it's seen a bit of action. It's fairly typical for commercial vehicle condition in that the cab on the front is very nice. The load bed certainly shows signs of having been used. You can get these from auction that are absolutely pristine. Not perfect, because let's face it, no second-hand vehicle is going to be perfect, but really nice condition. This one is a little bit cheaper and I've priced it accordingly. Given the fact that it does show some signs of having been used. If you've ever been to a UK commercial vehicle auction, I think you'll agree this compares pretty favourably with 99% of what you'd find at a UK commercial vehicle auction of a similar age. Apologies for the bits and pieces of mud splattered around it. I'm filming this in February and it's very hard to find somewhere nice to film that doesn't involve you going over some slightly muddy roads to get there, at least where I'm based anyway. You'll spot the fog light down there to the right of the number plate. You'll probably also spot evidence of a minor indiscretion on the left rear corner there. As I say, I believe that I've priced it accordingly, taking into account of those things. So there you'll see what I meant about the load bed showing some signs of wear. I'll show you under the bonnet. Although I hope you're not expecting to see an engine. We'll come to that later. So this has to be one of the smallest bonnets I've ever seen, certainly. Under here then we've got washer fluid, brake fluid and coolant. You might notice this one's got a slight sort of cloudy tinge to the white paint under here. That's because this has had a full rust proofing. So I use Built Amber Dynax products. There's UC, which is clear, that's what this has got on it, and then UB is a brown stuff, much thicker, provides much greater protection than the UC, but it doesn't look as nice, so I use that underneath where it can't be seen. And then there's another one called S50, which is the gloopiest of the three, and that goes inside the chassis, inside the bottom of the doors, inside the sills. The Carry's got loads of points where you can inject it in, so that gives it a real good protection against corrosion. These are amazing vehicles, but one of the things that they aren't particularly designed for is salty UK roads. There isn't much in the way of corrosion protection, so that rust protection I think is a very good idea. So you might be wondering about the load bed capacity and dimensions, that sort of thing, and I've got my phone out to make sure that I don't give you duff information. So officially this has a payload of 350 kilos. It's got an unladen weight of 750 kilos and a gross rate of 1,210. That's according to the export certificate anyway. So you might be able to squeeze a little bit more than 350 in if you weren't carrying a passenger, but not much. Dimensions wise then, 2 meters that way, 1.4 that way, and about 30 centimeters high on these sides here. These all come down. You've got low tie down points both on the sides and then also on the bed, underneath the bed if you wanted to use it as a flat bed. With those dimensions then, unfortunately it means that an 8x4 sheet that we're accustomed to buying wouldn't quite fit in with it like this, but this goes down flat and there are some chains to hold it flat, so they'd easily then be able to slide in that way, and it'd probably be easier to load them like that in any case. You might have noticed that the load bed isn't looking particularly shiny, and that's because I've given it a thin coating of the clear rust protection spray, just like you saw under the bonnet, just to give it a little bit of protection, because obviously it's exposed to the elements constantly when the vehicle's out and about. Right, I'll show you inside now. I said earlier that these vehicles were wonderfully simple. It wouldn't take you long to write down the equipment list on this truck. That doesn't sound like much of a sales pitch, does it? But it's an absolute pleasure to have such a simple vehicle, in my view anyway. I hope some of you agree. So we don't have any central locking. We have the fine manual windows. It's a sticker from an oil change previously done in Japan. This one's got extra overmats in the floor there. Nice to be able to take those out easily and shake off any muck. You see quite a lot of these with tears, splits in the vinyl on the seat there. Thankfully this one is in good condition. I'll show you what these are for in a moment. One piece of equipment it does have is electric power steering. I'm not sure it needs it because it's so light, but anyway, that's one bit of equipment that it does have, as I say. Indicators on the right, as you'll probably expect if you've driven a Japanese import vehicle before. There's the fog light switch. I'd like to blow my own trumpet and say I've made quite a nice job of that with a proper Suzuki switch, or at least one that fits in the hole correctly. So it's a 5-speed manual, quite low gearing as you'd probably expect from a vehicle like this that's designed for going up and down hills with load in the back. So first gear is really just to get you started. We'll come to that in a little bit more detail when we take it for a drive. There's a 4-wheel drive selector, so this has got low ratio 4-wheel drive as well. You see 2 high, 4 high, and then neutral, and then 4 low. It's got a decent heater, doesn't have air conditioning. I must just tell you about the radio. It's a fine piece of equipment, as you can tell. So it's one which I've only ever seen on K trucks like this before. Let me know if you've had one of these in any vehicle you've owned before. I haven't. In case it isn't obvious, the speaker is built in to the head unit itself, so there's no speakers in the doors. And it's AM or medium wave only. And a pleasant surprise for me was, despite that, I've actually managed to fill up all of the presets with quite reasonable radio stations. So yeah, it's just got a simple on-off there. I won't broadcast any more of the radio because that will probably get me in trouble. The time is displayed when the radio is off, or you can choose to display it instead of the tuned frequency when the radio is on as well. While we're here, that's just reminded me I didn't tell you about the ashtray either, which hopefully you can tell has never been used. This has a very pleasant and very familiar to me odour inside the cab. You may laugh, but that is quite important. It's always a real disappointment for me when you open the door of a vehicle you're thinking of buying and you give it a whiff, and it's either, well, the worst for me is the smell of smoke, and well, there's a whole range of other smells that we could go into, aren't there? But let's leave it there. This has none of those. It smells very pleasant. Let's move on. So it came with original set of books, and the wonderfully titled Suzuki Owner Driver's Case. Now what it does have, which I know you'll be excited to learn about, and we're going to focus, is a pen holder and a business card holder, and of course cup holders as well. I'll show you the engine now. As you've probably gathered, it's under the seats, so there's two clips on this side and a lever there to collapse this seat down, and those little webbing straps that I showed you before. So as I bring you in closer, I'll say that I am not a fan of pressure washing engine bays, so I've left this very much as it is. I really don't like the idea of spraying water all over the place and getting it into connectors, etc, etc. Anyway, rant over. So here's the jack, arm for winding up the jack, and wheel nut brace down there. So this is a 3-cylinder 650 something, let's call it 660, but it is ever so slightly less than that for those who are into the details. 3-cylinder 12 valve engine with a timing chain, and it's a K6A model code. Okay, so here's the other side. We're under the driver's seat now. You can see in yellow the dipstick there, airbox, etc, etc. So I just mentioned the preparation that I've done for this vehicle and getting it ready for sale. I've changed the engine oil and oil filter. That's an absolute must, and I would encourage you to do that frequently with any vehicle that you own, particularly if it's got a timing chain. I've changed the air filter as well, and the spark plugs, and all the gear oils, so gearbox, transfer box, and then also both differentials. It's had the rust proofing, as I've said, and it's also had a new clutch because the old one was worn out and it wasn't going into first gear particularly well. This sticker has just reminded me to say a few words about what it's like to work on one of these. This might not be relevant for all of you, but some of you out there might well quite enjoy doing your own work, servicing work, etc. on vehicles. And if that's you, then another reason to buy one of these is that I found it an absolute pleasure to work on. It feels like it's been designed a little bit with the mechanic and the maintenance in mind. So the oil change, air filter change, spark plugs, all really, really straightforward. The truck is littered with stickers like this, so stickers to help give information about maintenance. This is telling us about the type of gearbox oil that it needs. You'll see at the bottom there the GL475W90, and that's what it's got in it, fully synthetic. This is a sticker that would typically be put on when a manufacturer's recall has been done. So I checked the recalls for this vehicle before it left Japan, and there's no outstanding recalls. All right, let's take it for a drive, shall we? Sorry, you've got the intrusion of my camera equipment into your view here, but I'm not really prepared to leave it in the back because, yeah, I'd rather it not bounce out, that sort of thing. Okay, let's talk about size before we get going. I'm 6 foot tall. Hopefully you can see that I fit in here fairly comfortably. My knees aren't bashing against anything. They're not as straight probably as I might choose to have them ideally, but it is pretty comfortable to drive, pretty much what you'd expect for a commercial vehicle, as I said. We have a lovely old school, really thin steering wheel. It reminds me of my old Land Rover, although in many other ways it doesn't at all remind me of my old Land Rover. It's much more nicely put together than that. So, foot on the clutch to start. And off we go. The clutch is really light, as you would hopefully expect. And one thing, which I hope, well, you won't quite appreciate it because you can't see where I'm going, the turning circle and the manoeuvrability on these is absolutely incredible. First gear is very, very low, just really to get you moving. Might stay in it slightly longer if we had the full payload, but as we don't, it's really just to get you moving. I'm going to stay in it up this hill because it's quite steep. So you find like I'm in third now, just driving through a car park. That doesn't mean I am being a crazy rule breaker and going far too fast. It's geared really low, as I said before. So you generally find yourself going around corners, for example, out of junctions and stuff, in a one gear up from where you would in most manual transmission vehicles. Okay, we're out of the car park. Let's get going. I hope you won't be surprised to hear me say that it's a fairly utility sort of feel to it. There's not much in the way of sound deadening, so the road noise, and the suspension is fairly firm as well, so but you do feel some of the bumps. However, despite what I've just said, it's a lovely driving experience. As I said, completely different to a lot of bloated and rather disconnected driving feelings that we've become accustomed to in a lot of cars these days. The steering's really light, really easy to manoeuvre, great visibility, really nice to be a little bit high up as well. Nice short gear shift. I think it's fair to say that the gearbox doesn't like to be rushed. You need to work the revs a little bit. I don't mean thrash it, but I just mean don't change up early like you would with a high torque diesel engine, for example. And you work your way up to fifth gear fairly quickly. So we're doing 50 miles an hour now. I'm in fifth gear. A lot of the lower gears I think are designed for taking this carry up really steep hills in four-wheel drive with a full load in the back. So when it's empty and we're on a fairly flat road, we can work up through the gears quite quickly. And given the size of the engine, I must say it pulls pretty well. I mean, I hope you're not expecting sort of super high performance acceleration here, but it's by no means as sluggish as you might expect it to be. In terms of the top speed of one of these, I'm going to confess I don't actually know. I will look it up if I can find it. I'll put it in some text at the bottom of the video. It's very happy pottling along at 50 miles an hour. It seems pretty comfortable at 60 as well, actually. I've not taken it on the motorway at 70. That would be revving it quite hard, I would say, but I suspect it could probably do it. Final thing to mention, which I didn't say earlier, the road tax for this is £170 for the year, which might seem quite a lot for a 660cc engine. You know what I'm going to say, I don't make the rules up, that's how much it is, but I thought it's important to mention as part of the video. So, that brings this video just about to a close. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope it was interesting for you. If you'd like to buy this vehicle, there'll be a link in the description of the video which will take you through to my website, which will tell you how much it is, and there's also a contact form on there for you to get in touch with me and arrange to come and have a look at it. Okay, I'll leave it there then. Thanks very much for watching. See you later. Bye for now.